You're listening to CherryPickin Entertainment.
Throw me the ball and watch what I do with it.
You are now tuned into the CherryPickin podcast with your host, Andre Cherry.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Thank you for downloading another exciting episode of the CherryPickin podcast. I'm your host, Andre Cherry, and on this episode, I want to talk about the teams that I feel are on the rise this upcoming season. I feel like there are teams within each conference, talking the ACC, Big 10, Big 12, and the SEC, that we should have our eyes on this season. And I feel like there's some teams right now that we could talk about that at least in my opinion, I feel as if will be on the rise for this season. So we'll just go ahead, dive right into it. The teams on the rise in 2024 will start in the ACC. And who would have thought NC State is a team that I feel like will be on the rise this season. NC State went 9-4 last season. And we saw a turnaround with NC State right at the point where Steve Smith Sr. called the program out for waiting for basketball season to roll around. This came on ESPN College Game Day on October 28th when he was a guest picker and the Clemson versus NC State game was mentioned, and he said, and I quote, "Clemson has been struggling. They're not the Clemson that we've loved over the years," Smith said, "but NC State, unfortunately, they're waiting for basketball to start," end quote. And this lit a fire in head coach Dave Doeren, who is now in his 12th season at NC State. He clapped back with the W and some pointed comments to Steve Smith Sr. after his Wolfpack beat Clemson by a score of 24-17. But after that point, NC State went undefeated the rest of the regular season to finish 9-4. Prior to Steve Smith's comments, NC State was 4-3 and were coming off a very rare and ugly loss to Duke by a score of 3-24, where the offense just didn't show up at all. Things seemed pretty bleak for the program, but to Doeren's credit, he never lost his team. This season, NC State loses a lot of star power on its defense, including stud linebacker and former Bednarik Award winner and first-team All-American Peyton Wilson. But there's a lot of excitement in Raleigh right now with the arrival of Coastal Carolina transfer quarterback Grayson McCall on campus. For his career, he's amassed an 88-14 record with over 10,000 passing yards. He's an athletic passer who should also help add an element to the rushing game for the Wolfpack this season. McCall will add some stability to the quarterback position that the Wolfpack haven't seen in years. His addition to the team provides a boost right away. Another call out here is that NC State's schedule is very favorable this season on paper. The toughest test will come on September 21st when State travels to Clemson, which undoubtedly will be a tough game for Clemson as well. The Wolfpack have a real shot to best their 9-4 record from a season ago and hopefully end up in the ACC championship game. Then in the Big 10, Nebraska is a team that I think is on the rise. They went 5-7 in 2023, but despite that, I think the sky's the limit for Nebraska this season. Nebraska doesn't have a particularly easy schedule this season, especially when you consider they have to travel to Ohio State, followed by stops at USC and Iowa. But I think there's a real path for head coach Matt Rule and his Cornhuskers to get to bowl eligibility. Looking back at last season, Nebraska had 4 games that were within 3 points of victory. And this may sound crazy, but the Cornhuskers have a shot to open the season on a 5-1 run. So 5 wins and only 1 loss is what I think they could do. And I'm not trying to come off as a homer, but the Cornhuskers have a chance to lock in bowl eligibility before they travel to Ohio State on October 26th if the pieces come together like I think they will. Can you imagine Nebraska back at a bowl game? It's been about 8 years since the Lincoln faithful have had a chance to see their beloved Cornhuskers in a bowl game. I think it would be really special. Then in the Big 12, we've got Oklahoma State, who went 10-4 last season. Oklahoma State has been consistent for the last decade. In that span, they've amassed a 57-33 record, which is second best only behind Oklahoma, who just recently departed for the SEC. Head coach Mike Gundy is entering his 20th season in Stillwater, which is quite impressive. Even more impressive is the fact that he's only had one losing season during that entire stretch, which came in his first season as head coach back in 2005. He's had 8 seasons where the Cowboys have eclipsed double-digit wins, and for as kooky and zany as Mike Gundy is, he's definitely written the blueprint for creating a successful program. This season, I think the sky's the limit for Oklahoma State. Its schedule isn't terribly tough on paper, but the Cowboys do hit the road quite a bit. But fortunately, they get Utah at home this season, and almost every player returns this year, with 19 starters coming back for action this fall, including quarterback Alan Bowman and leading Cowboys rusher Ollie Gordon, who rushed for over 1,700 yards and 21 touchdowns a season ago. He won the Big 12 rushing title last season and no doubt will be a player everyone has their eyes on. It's my prediction that Oklahoma State will see its win total in the double digits again this season and quite possibly be on their way to a Big 12 championship matchup at the end of the season. Then in the SEC, I think Ole Miss is on the rise. They went 11-2 in 2023. The Mississippi Rebels have a chance to seriously compete in the SEC this season. Lane Kiffin is in his grown man era at Oxford. He's matured quite a bit and settled in with the Rebels, now in his 5th season at the helm. Assuming he completes the full season with Ole Miss, this will be the longest tenured stop that he's had on his head coaching resume, if you can believe that or not. And this season, he's got reason to be excited. He returns 20 starters, including quarterback Jackson Dart, who amassed over 3,300 yards through the air, 23 touchdowns to only 5 interceptions. On defense, Ole Miss's leading playmaker, strong safety Trey Washington returns, who was their leading tackler from a season ago and also tied for the most interceptions on the team. Ole Miss doesn't have an easy schedule by any stretch, but they should be favored in more games than they aren't. I'm circling the game against LSU on October 12th, followed by Oklahoma and then Georgia on November 9th. The Rebels host OU and the Dogs, but that trip to LSU on October 12th will really dictate where Ole Miss's season goes the rest of the way. Lane Kiffin has a real shot to break through to the upper echelon of the SEC this season. Can he and his Rebels do it? We shall see. So I had to pick one team from each of the major conferences. These were the teams that I think will be on the rise this season. In the ACC, we've got NC State. In the Big Ten, we've got Nebraska. In the Big 12, Oklahoma State. And in the SEC, Ole Miss. We're going to take a quick timeout, a quick pause. But on the other side of the break, I want to talk about the teams that I think are on the slide as a little bonus part of this episode. I want to talk about the teams that are on the slide this upcoming season. We'll do that right after this break. Don't go anywhere. The Cherry Pickin' Podcast will be right back.
Want to know what life is really like after the game is all over? Real athletes are here to share their true stories of adversity and triumph every week on After Orange Slices. Even if you don't like sports, pro athletes, former college stars, celebrities, coaches, public speakers, doctors, and all kinds of experts join the show, and there's a little bit of something for everybody. Join me, Bridget, for a slice of inspiration, plus your everyday sports news sprinkled in. New episodes every Friday at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, available anywhere you get your podcasts.
Basketball is back. And with that comes joy, tension, heartbreak, buzzer beaters, and elation. It's time to be courtside for every one of those moments, no matter where your team is playing. Short Court specializes in making replica and custom basketball courts for your home, office, sports cave to decorate your walls with all those memories. If you have a picture, we can recreate it. Featured in the 2021 UniWatch Holiday Gift Guide, short courts are made using real wood. We frame and give them an epoxy finish to protect the new centerpiece of your memorabilia collection. With previous customers including Northern Kentucky University, Southern Utah University, 199 Apparel, The Perimeter Podcast with Adam Morrison, and many more celebrating the careers and retirements of their coaches, it's time you visit shortcourts.com for more info and a gallery of our work, or you can send us an email, info@shortcourts.com. Be sure to find us on social media, just search for Short Courts. It's time to bring the home court home.
Now I want to get into the teams that I feel like will be on the slide in 2024. And this is not to say that these teams are going to be terrible this season, but I think they're just going to take a little slide this upcoming season. We'll start in the ACC, And I'm taking Florida State is going to see a little bit of a slide. They went 13-1 last season. Head coach Mike Norvell has done yeoman's work for the Florida State program ever since he's been at the controls. He's now entering his 5th season, which is impressive because I remember hearing folks say that Deion was going to come to take his job just a few seasons ago after the Seminoles saw consecutive losing seasons in 2020, the COVID year, and then also in 2021. Since that time, though, FSU has been a winner. These last 2 seasons, Florida State has gone 23-4 and even won the ACC championship last season. They were one of the best teams all year last year, but missed out on the playoffs in dramatic fashion, almost soap opera-like fashion, but we won't get into that right now. However, the question begs, is Florida State officially back? I would love to know the answer, because I'm really curious to see how Norvell does this season after losing quite a bit of talent, including superstar quarterback Jordan Travis. Of course, Norvell hit the portal hard to try to find replacements that can be filled in and plugged in and step up right away, but that's never a guarantee for success. FSU has a tough schedule, traveling to SMU, followed by a matchup against Clemson right after. Florida State also travels to Miami and Notre Dame before the season is officially over and done. With that being said, I think Florida State takes a slide this season and misses out on a 3rd straight 10-win season and a repeat trip to the ACC championship game. In the Big Ten, I think Michigan will see a slide. They went 15-0 last season. There are some folks who are more optimistic than I am when it comes to how we feel Michigan will fare this season in the Big Ten. I think they are going to struggle a bit this season. The Wolverines lost way too much talent and its former head coach for me to feel otherwise. And when you look at the schedule, it's not going to be easy at all. Texas comes into Ann Arbor in the 2nd week of the season, followed by the Ducks later in the season, and the annual matchup against Ohio State to end the season. I'm not necessarily saying Michigan will be terrible, but to expect the Wolverines to go undefeated or to win the Big Ten, make the playoffs, and then win a national title just doesn't seem realistic this season. It's just not going to be in the cards. I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan saw 4 losses this season if I'm being real. Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, and then they'll most likely lose an upset game against either Minnesota, Illinois, or Michigan State this season. In the Big 12, West Virginia. Last season, West Virginia had one of its best seasons in quite a while, going 9-4. I mean, they were on the verge of its first 10-win season dating back to 2016, but a couple of close losses stopped that from happening. That 10-win season is the program's only double-digit win total while being a member of the Big 12. The Mountaineers joined the conference from the Big East back in 2012. West Virginia was highly successful in the Big East, but the transition to the Big 12 hasn't been quite as nice. And honestly, maybe some of that is due to the fact that their travel schedule is bonkers. West Virginia plays teams that are located in Texas, Kansas, Iowa, and Oklahoma. That travel has to be tough. If we look at the Mountaineers' schedule for this season, it's not fun. They open up against Penn State on August 31st, host Kansas, and then travel to Oklahoma State on October 5th, followed by tough matchups right after to Iowa State and Kansas State. Fortunately, they'll play host to both the Cyclones and Wildcats this season, but they'll have their work cut out for them this season. Coach Brown welcomes back 8 starters on offense, but the fact that he lost 6 starters on defense has me slightly concerned, especially with the different offenses they'll be facing this season, notably against Oklahoma State, who can abuse you in the air and especially on the ground. Then in the SEC, I think Alabama will slide this season. They went 12-2 last year. It'll be interesting to see how Alabama plays under a new head coach this season. Felt like we collectively got used to seeing Nick Saban on the sideline for the Crimson Tide after all these years, 17 years to be exact. During that time span, his teams helped him amass an impressive 206-29 record, 206 wins to only 29 losses. That is outstanding. Bama's schedule is brutal this season with stops at Wisconsin, hosting Georgia, Missouri, a trip to LSU and Oklahoma at the end of the season, and the Iron Bowl matchup against Auburn on November 30th. Head coach Kalen DeBoer has all the right bona fides to be the new head coach in Tuscaloosa, but I will tell you that I absolutely do not envy the position that he is in. there's no way that he can live up to the legacy that Saban built. And I'm not saying that he necessarily has to, but Tuscaloosa has gotten so accustomed to winning for 16 seasons. Bama has won at least 10 games each season dating back to 2008 and has seen 7 national championships during that stretch. What happens if they aren't able to match that level of productivity this season? I wish that brother good luck. I don't see a way that Alabama doesn't regress a bit this season. Not to say that they'll be awful, but by Alabama's standards this year will be a bit of a disappointment for everyone who is faithful to that program. So there we have it, my friends. 4 up and 4 down. The top 4 teams that I think will be on the rise this season, and then the top 4 teams that will be on the slide in 2024. What do you think of my thoughts, my prediction about how these teams will fare this season? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Let me know. Shout me out on Twitter at @Cherry_Pickin. I would love to hear your thoughts and have a little dialogue with you. But thank you for downloading this episode. I greatly appreciate it. I hope it's getting you ready and getting you amped for college football that is just right around the corner here. We're not that far off from kickoff for the first game of the season. And I'm pumped. I hope you are too. But thank you again for listening. Thank you for downloading. Thank you for being a friend. Hope you guys have a good one. Stay safe. Stay healthy. We'll talk to you soon. Take care, everybody. Peace. Lane Kiffin is in his grown man era at Oxford. Thank you again for tuning into my Cherry Pickin podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to subscribe to my show and drop me a rating on Apple Podcasts. All of my digital content can be found at the website CherryPickinSports.com. And if you are looking to interact with me via social media, my Twitter handle is @Cherry_Pickin. That's PICKIN. On my Twitter, you'll also find a link to my blog where I post my weekly college football predictions and analysis. I can also be reached via email at cherrypickinsports@gmail.com. Please feel free to reach out to me regarding what you like about this podcast or about what content you'd like to hear more of on future episodes. I sincerely thank you for your support, and I can't wait to talk to you again soon. Take care.